Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Books in Bed with Looking for. Ugh, I put the wrong page. No, still wrong one. Okay, woo, alright. Looking for Alaska by John Green, and we are finishing the book today. The section we're discussing is pages 182 to 221. And that's just this last section right here. The second book that we've read with Books in Bed. I think it was in the middle of the last book when I switched it to Books in Bed, but super exciting nonetheless to finish another book with you guys. Um, Last section of Looking for Alaska was like everything came to a head and then exploded with Alaska's death and everyone's reaction to that, and then like the fallback of all of that and how everyone not really moves on, because no one moves on right away because it's Alaska. She made a huge impact on like everyone's lives, so obviously no one's gonna be moving on anytime soon. But let's see, so where we left off, um, the colonel was taking it like super hard. He like ran away for like a few days because he just like didn't know what to do. So we pick it up. Um, Pudge doesn't care about his grades anymore and is just focusing on getting B minuses, so his parents like don't question him anymore. And this is a huge switch because throughout this whole book before, grades were a huge deal to Pudge, and he took school very seriously. But since Alaska's death, it's kind of like back burner, not important anymore. Um, so next, like exciting thing that happens is the colonel ends up telling Takumi everything that happened with Alaska that night, everything except the kiss. He leaves that out. He doesn't tell him that Pudge and Alaska like fully made out that night. And and they all kind of come to the conclusion that they need to talk to Jake. The colonel had been like all gung ho all along that like they need to talk to Jake and get some answers, and Pudge just really, really did not want to do that at all. But now with Takumi in the mix, the three of them like seriously want to know what happened to Alaska still. Like some time has passed. Let's see. Like when we start on page 182, it's been 28 days since Alaska died. So, it's been a little while, but they still need those fucking answers. So, we find out Takumi. Okay, sorry, I couldn't read my own handwriting for a second. So, we find out that Takumi wanted Alaska too. Him and Pudge are like having this one-on-one conversation, and he's like, you weren't the only one that wanted her. Like, you don't get a monopoly on that. And then Pudge kind of like admits slash brags that he kissed her that night, and he's like, well, I do get a monopoly on that. And like gets all flustered. Um, and so I don't know. Takumi, he takes it as best as you could take some news like that, where you just told your friend that you had a crush on this girl that you know that he has a crush on too, and then you find out that they kissed the night that she dies. Like, awkward. Just a little bit. Just a little. Um, so kind of weird that he admits it but then brags about it, and then he even admits that he kind of feels weird about that. So then there's a weird interaction with Lara, because since Alaska's death, so we're going to page 189 if you want to follow along with me. But ever since Alaska's death, Pudge kind of just completely ignored Lara and just didn't do anything. He didn't like officially break up with her or anything. They were really shitty like boyfriend and girlfriend to begin with. Didn't really make sense. But yeah, they were just like pretty much ignoring each other, not having any conversations. And then they have like a super awkward interaction. What do I say in my notes? Something about 189. Oh, okay. So he kind of explains like where his mindset really is at this time, because let's see, now we're at 37 days after Alaska's death. And so he's just had an awkward run in with Laura, and his inner dialogue says, I wanted to talk to her. I knew I'd been awful. Imagine, I kept telling myself, if you were Laura with a dead friend and a silent ex boyfriend, but I only had room for one true want, and she was dead. And I wanted to know the how and why of it, and Laura couldn't tell me. And that was all that mattered. So at first you're kind of like, Pudge, stop being such a dick. But then, like, you read that and you're like, oh, I get it, Pudge. Like, go ahead. You can be an asshole if you want to, I guess. Like, she'll understand if she's a really cool person and, like, is meant to be your friend from, like, moving on through this. But regardless, awkward as fuck. Like, everyone is just, like, at a standstill, and with all of their emotions, they're, like, completely all, like, mashed up in their brains, and they don't know how to, like, really act or like treat their friends since this happened. Alaska was like the glue that held this whole group together, and now now they're all kind of falling apart. So this was kind of sad. So since the Colonel and Pudge got their cigarettes from Alaska, they now had to go through other avenues, and for a really long time, people were kind of like giving them charity cigarettes, and people that they wouldn't regularly even talk to. Like one of the Weekday Warriors, I'm pretty sure, was one of the people to supply them cigarettes during this part of the book after Alaska's death. Um, and they rely on that as long as possible, but then unfortunately, like, it kind of runs out. Um, then finally, Pudge, Colonel, Takumi, and Lara, like the four out of the five, Alaska's obviously not there. So the four left finally all get together again and like hash it all out and get on the same page again. They go down to the smoking hole, and again, something seems really, really fishy about Takumi. It's not that I don't trust him, he's like still one of the core people in this group and it's all good, but I don't know. He just keeps doing all these fishy things. Like before, like remember I said before, like I felt like that he was hiding something, and then I'm pretty sure that he was with Alaska, or he did see her at some point on the night that she died. Um, and then we kind of like something else happens with that. We're going to page 195. Um, where am I looking? Ugh, I don't know. Can't find it. I can't find like Takumi's name. I don't know. I don't know what I was referring to with that exactly. But yeah, super fishy. You just like, I'm totally convinced at this point that he did see her. Oh, end of page 195. Okay, I guess that's separate. I'm confusing myself now. Okay, well, I can't remember exactly. I can't find it in the book exactly where Takumi, like, he, like, something in my brain was like, ding, this is fishy as fuck. Can't find that. So moving on, end of page 195, there's this quote. Um, we're again in Pudge's inner dialogue, and he's talking about enlightenment. And I'm wondering if you guys have a similar feeling. So he says, reading it the night before, I wondered if it would be like that for me. if in one moment I would finally understand her, know her, and understand the role I'd played in her dying. But I wasn't convinced enlightenment struck like lightning. So I'm curious, do you guys at home, like if you're here live at the chat, let me know in that chat right now, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, down in the comments below. But do you feel like enlightenment is something that happens like lightning? It's just like bam, like a snap, you see things all clearly, or is it more of like a gradual thing and things just like slowly get to you and then you're like, oh, enlightenment, yay? Or is it like all at once? I kind of feel like it's all at once. I feel like there are certain steps that will gradually lead up to enlightenment, but I feel like it is more of a lightning strike thing with like the context that he's talking about, where it's like he's gonna finally understand her and know her and the role that he played in her dying. Like, there's certainly things that's going to like slowly lead up to that, but maybe eventually he'll get like a huge enlightenment, light bulb, lightning strike moment. We can only hope, because Pudge obviously deserves that. He is like in turmoil in his own mind with this whole shit. It's not good. So yeah, enlightenment. Moving on, the school wants to build a playground in Alaska's memorial, um, and that's great and all, but it's just not Alaska. It's not what she stood for at all. So, um, I can't remember exactly who it was that suggested, but they were like, we need something more Alaska, which completely makes sense. Like, if you're gonna do a memorial for someone, like have it at least reflect who they were as a person. And a boring playground for kids is just not really screaming Alaska from what we know about her. Like this back of the book that describes her as gorgeous, clever, funny, sexy, self-destructive, screwed up, and utterly fascinating. Like, do any of those words go along with a children's playground? I don't think so. But anyways, the four friends decide that a prank will suit a memorial way, way better for Alaska. And so they go all out into this planning. And of course, it has a title, which is Subverting the Patriarchal Paradigm, whatever that means. And they obviously know that this is going to be a prank that's going to go down in history, like Culver Creek prank history, and it's going to have Alaska's name live in infamy for sure. And the Colonel goes all out in planning. Like, if you thought that he went all out with the barn night prank, this is like way, way more intense. Way more intense. He fills like notebooks full down to, like he says, like a tenth of a second, because before they like synced their watches, like everything was down to the minute. But he says that in this one it's like down to a tenth of a second. He takes it super seriously, and they are like ready to plan this prank of a lifetime for sure. So the planning is like a huge part of it, and the planning actually goes through without a hitch, even though they have to do kind of sketchy stuff like reach out to the Weekday Warriors for help. Like they, hold on, I need to switch. um, okay, just need to adjust. But anyways, so yeah, there's like all this crazy complicated stuff that they have to do for the planning of this prank. But they fucking do it. Like it's all possible. And then the prank goes on. They have this whole thing with this male stripper going on, and you're like, what's going on? Let's see. Okay, so their major prank is that they hire a stripper or a male stripper to pose as a speaker for their like main thing that they do every year that's super boring. I guess every class like elects a speaker to come, and so they totally convince the eagle and everything else to go along with it, and they get this guy, and he ends up like doing this whole strip show thing, and it's amazing, hilarious. But then we're like getting to end of the book, and we're like, okay, that was great and all, but like, really, how is this book going to end? Um, let's see. Oh, so they do. I didn't make a note of it. That's weird. I like totally didn't even mention it. But I mean, how did I forget about this? I mean, I guess it wasn't something super monumental, but the Colonel actually does end up talking to Jake, and it doesn't seem like Jake has that many answers or like as many as they were hoping to get. They don't really feel like she was on the way to him when she died, but then um, later Pudge kind of figures it out that it was like really referring to her mom and like the white flowers. That was kind of like a mystery. I guess it was what they'd found out from the cop that they had like sketchily questioned, that she had some white flowers in the back of the car when she died. So they were trying to figure out what that was all about. Um, Here we are. We're to the prank. Oh no, that's still planning it. Yeah, so it's like we're at page 201 and we're still like planning this prank, and the book ends on page 221. So you're like, what the hell? What is going on? How are they going to end this? Wrap it up in like a nice, neat little package. Answer all of our questions. At least that's how I like books to end. Okay, so we're at the prank. The guy is like late, even though they had like already paid him. Or I guess he depends. He demands to get paid right away. I think that's it. But anyways, so he goes on, he pretends to be like the class speaker, and then it turns out that he's a stripper, and they play Princes Get Off over the speaker system. Hilarity ensues, and they essentially get away with it. Let's see. Yeah, so the eagle like knocks on their door, like comes in and is like, I knows you. Let's see. So we looked at him silently. He often bluffed, but maybe he was bluffing. Don't ever do anything like that again. But Lord, subverting the patriarchal paradigm. It's like she wrote the speech. He smiled and closed the door. So the eagle was nice for a moment. He realized that this whole thing was done for Alaska, and so it's not like a random prank that like they really needed to be punished for, which was cool of the eagle, you know. I've never, throughout this book, I never really hated the eagle. Like, he wasn't out to get them, like, out of spite or, like, random, like, he just wants to get kids in trouble and, like, hates them for some reason. And you don't really understand. Like, he kind of feel like he just wants the best for him. And that's cool, I guess. But even cooler that he lets him go after this, like, epic prank. But then again, I guess, because the whole thing with this leading up to the prank was they were like, technically, there's nothing that we're doing that is expellable. So maybe that's why the eagle was nice about it, because he knew that couldn't really get them in trouble for something. So now I'm torn. I don't know if it's because the eagle was cool or if it's because he knew that he couldn't actually get them in trouble. Regardless, they didn't get in trouble for their epic prank that's going to live in history, and that's pretty fucking cool. So, a week and a half later, the let's see. Ah, So again, like this book has always been a roller coaster wave of like lulls and then really crazy exciting things happen. So the prank happens, it's super exciting, and then a lull happens, and whatever, nothing really happens, and then we find Takumi is back in Pudge's room when he comes back one day, super random. You're like, what is he doing? And he kind of had like a light bulb moment where he realized something after thinking about it more. Um, yeah, so he comes back and he's like, January 10th, does that date ring a bell? And he's like, yeah, it's the day Alaska died. And it's like, well, technically the 11th because it was like after midnight or whatever, but they consider it the 10th. And he's like, yeah, but something else. Pudge, January 9th. Alaska's mom took her to the zoo. It's like, wait, no, how do you know that? And it's like, oh, she told us at barn night, blah, blah, blah. And then the colonel comes in and they're all like, holy shit. They like have this crazy realization. And it's probably like why Alaska was so upset that day. Um, and so let's see. Yeah, so Colonel is like, holy shit, why the hell didn't I think of that? And so they're like going through it all in their mind, trying to figure it all out and what Alaska was thinking that night, which is kind of hard because you like throughout this book you never know what Alaska's thinking. So there's still to this like moment in the book we're almost ending and you kind of get it more, like Alaska's reasoning of why she was like freaking the fuck out that night. What did I say in my notes? Um, so they kind of get some peace with it because, I mean, as sad as it still is, they like they understand where she was coming from, and so what it was that like we found out from the barn night like she had this horrible like haunting in her soul from when her mom died and she didn't have that gut reaction to go call the paramedics or whatever. Her mom had the what was it, the brain aneurysm, so pretty much instantly died. There probably wasn't much she could do, but still haunted her like all of her life. So apparently every year she would go put white flowers on her mom's grave. This year she forgot, and so that's when she came into Pudge and Colonel and was like, fuck, fuck, like crying and freaking out and was like, help me get out of here, help me get out of here, because she needed to go put flowers on her mom's grave. Um, so they don't really feel like it was a straight suicide because she still wasn't showing the full signs, but then they do have this thing. Oh, so then Pudge and Takumi um, and the Colonel, they is Laura with them too? Oh wait, no. Okay, so never mind. Scratch that. They invite Laura and Takumi to come along, but they say no. They're pretty much done with like the haunting of Alaska. And so it is just the Colonel and just Pudge. They go and they drive to where Alaska um, died. And they like drive through it essentially. And so this like last quote from this moment, again, Pudge's inner dialogue. I thought this would not be a bad way to go. I thought straight and fast. Maybe she just decided at the last second. And I kind of agree. Alaska was such an impulsive person, and she was like having this internal freak out over her mom. And then she saw this cop car that was blocking the road. I feel like it was just a snap decision to take the straight and fast and not go through the labyrinth any longer. Like she was just done with all of that bullshit, pretty much. So, I don't know, poor Alaska and her like torn, twisted, confused soul. Like she's just um, super torn, and then unfortunately has to like end her life short. It's kind of tragic. I mean, not kind of, it's really tragic. So, ugh, I don't know. Again, we're like getting closer to the book, and you're like, okay, it's nice that we kind of know we have some closure on Alaska, but still, like now we're at page 213. How is this shit gonna end? Like John Green, don't you mess with my emotions like this. Um, let's see. Okay, so after that, they all fall back completely into studying, like 24 hours pretty much, staying up all night, every night, because they want to get their grades back up. Like now that they have this closure with Alaska, and that seems kind of nice. It seems legit that, they still have stuff that they care about besides like figuring out what happened to Alaska. Um, and then closer to the ending, we get to page 215, and we are in class with Pudge. And it's that religion class that's kind of been like a theme throughout the book. We never really see him in class much except for this one religion class. Like they do mention all the other classes that he's taking, but there's no like dialogue or moments in class besides this religion class. So he's giving out the final exam, and says, I have your final exam here. Last semester I gave you nearly 2 months to complete your final paper. This time you get 2 weeks. He paused. Well, nothing to be done about that, I guess. He laughed. To be honest, I just decided once and for all to use this paper topic last night. It rather goes against my nature, anyways, pass these around. When the pile came to me, I read the question. How will you personally, ever get out of this labyrinth of suffering? Now you've wrestled with 3 major religious traditions. Apply your newly enlightened mind to Alaska's question. So, obviously, like in the ending of this book, we see what a huge impact Alaska had on everyone's lives at Culver Creek, and not just the Colonel and Pudge and Takumi and Laura. Like, even the Eagle, you kind of see, like, she had an impact on him. But like the teachers and moving on and like their school year, like they're still thinking about her and her like weirdness kind of, and like the unique view that she had on everything, and this whole labyrinth of suffering. So he kind of like switches it up, and he even is like, all of your quizzes and everything else from this semester or like trimester, whatever they do, like that is going to show what you really know about these religions that we've been studying. For this, like I just want to know what you think personally. And so that's kind of cool, but crazy. And then Pudge is kind of just like blank minded. He just doesn't even know what to say. Um, and so there's this nice quote. So I guess Colonel's in the class too, I forgot. But they're talking about it, and they're like, so how will we ever get his labyrinth, Colonel? If only I knew. That's probably not going to get you an A. And he's like, oh, I keep like forgetting things about Alaska and stuff. And let's see. No, I made it. No, I don't want to read that yet. I want to come back to that. I did make a note of that as we're like wrapping this book up. Um, so yeah, they have that question posed. It's their final, and then like flash forward a little bit. Pudge comes back to his place and finds a note from Takumi that confesses that he did in fact see Alaska. Aha! I was right the whole time. did see her that night, but it's too late to go and try and talk to him. He is off to Japan for the summer. Um, and let's see, 219 is when we see his note. It's kind of a sad note. He's like says that there's no sugarcoating it. She deserved better friends because they like all let her go that night. And I don't know. It's just sad. Or wait, no, I'm on the wrong page. That's Pudge said, not Takumi. There's Takumi's note. Okay. Yeah, so she was drunk and crying and everything, and he like tried to console her and talk to her, but eventually let her go, just like Pudge and the Colonel did. And yeah. Then we get down to it, and it's like, yeah, next page. Pudge like freaks out. He tries to go find Takumi, but of course it's too late. He's left for Japan. He gets back to the room, and the Colonel is not there yet. And so he just sits down at his computer, and he says, I wrote my way out of the labyrinth. So he is writing his religion final. And so he begins that, and then that is the ending of the book. Is just Pudge's pretty much internal dialogue, him typing out his religion final, and it ends. So I know she forgives me, just as I forgive her. Thomas Edison's last words were, It's very beautiful over there. I don't know where there is, but I believe it's somewhere, and I hope it's beautiful. So not really to say I was disappointed by the ending of this book, but it definitely caught me off guard, and I wasn't really expecting it to end there. I do make a note that the book ends with Pudge writing his religion final. Finally comes back to the room, and Colonel isn't back yet. Pudge leaves the note from Takumi for him to read. But I'm a bit disappointed that we don't get like last words from the Colonel before this all ends, and like kind of feel where he's gonna be going after this. Like it's like what it says about his summer vacation is he's gonna be watching soybeans grow or something with his mom. Like I don't know, that was not conclusive enough for me. I wanted more to know about where he was gonna be going, just like in life and like his mind in general, because he was such an interesting character. Like I feel like I attached to the Colonel more than any of the other characters for sure. So I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get like a super last word like towards the very end of the book. And then I say, although he does have great last words in the book in general. It's page 216 if you're following along at home. This is where I, before when I was like, no, I don't want to read that quote yet, because this is actually the Colonel's last words in the book, and it's quite beautifully written. It says, after all this time, it still seems to me like straight and fast is the only way out, but I choose the labyrinth. The labyrinth blows, but I choose it. And let's see, what do I say? I say I agree with him, because it's like life is hard, but we endure it because it's always somehow worth it. And that is where I'm going to end my thoughts on this. Fucking Looking for Alaska by John Green. It was my first time reading this book. And I do want to say, I feel like I enjoyed it more reading it slowly like this with you guys, like splitting it up week to week. I am personally a very fast reader. It's a very like quick, flimsy read. Not flimsy, but like it's not like 1984, the last book we did, where it was like thick material like this. It's very breezy. You can kind of just like read through it. So with a book like this, 200 pages, I probably would have read this in like a few hours. And with like the start to finish of it and like looking at it all, I don't think I would have liked it. I think I would have been kind of mad and like I wouldn't have gotten enough out of it. But since I slowed it down with you guys and read it week to week instead, I feel like I enjoyed it a lot more, got a lot more out of it. And yeah, super fun. Again, books in bed. It'll probably start up again in October, so give me like another week or so to decide on a book and then give you guys time to get the book and get reading it before we start up with the new series of books in bed. And yeah, this has been Looking for Alaska by John Green. Thank you guys so much for joining me in bed where we should be, because reading books in bed is fucking awesome. And yeah, I will see you guys later.